Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon, your resident skeptic who asks all the tough questions. And with me is Jennifer Neal, our manifesting maestro. Whether you're rolling your eyes or raising your vibration, we dive into all things manifestation, mindset, and energy from every side. Hit subscribe, settle in, and get ready for spirited debates, surprising experiments, and laughter on the journey to creating a life you love. Today, we're going to talk about the law of gender, the dance of doing and being. Hi, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm great, great, great. Can't wait to dive into this.
Okay, well, the stage is yours.
Okay, so today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood hermetic laws, universal laws, and it's called the law of gender. And before anyone clicks away, this isn't about male or female, okay? Regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of all of that, this has nothing to do with that. This is about the two creative forces that exist inside of every human being.
Okay, that's interesting because when you first said that we were going to do the law of gender, I thought, oh, great, we might be talking about dating again.
No, we're not, but I will tell you this does affect dating sometimes, and we can talk about that. But what I mean is we're all a little bit of everything. But that we're talking energy though. Okay? So masculine and feminine as universal principles is all about energy. The doing and the being, the structure and the flow, and the giving and receiving.
Okay, this sounds like we're going to go pretty deep on something very interesting. So, what does the law of gender mean?
So, in Hermetic philosophy, the law of gender says that everything has masculine and feminine energy. So, think of nature as a good example. A seed needs soil to grow, right?
Okay,
The sun and the moon, action and receptivity. Creation always needs both.
so it's basically the idea of balance, like yin and yang.
Yes. In manifestation, you need both too, though. Okay. So the masculine energy, it sets intention, it takes action, it creates structure. And I'm going to say, you and I, Sharon, are really good in our masculine energy. We're
Right.
drivers, we're doers, we're planners, we create structure. The feminine energy, it allows, it receives, it listens to intuition. So without masculine energy, there's no drive. Dreams never take any form. Without feminine energy, there's no magnetism to draw it in.
So, it's sort of like planning a road trip. You need a map and a car, but you also need to be open to detours and gas station snacks.
Well, not if you're my boyfriend, you don't, because he doesn't like a detour. But exactly, right? You just described manifestation to a T.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How does someone know if they're out of balance?
Great question. Sometimes never.
Yeah.
Sometimes never. Overactive masculine shows up, and I'm guilty as charged, not so much anymore, but super guilty as charged in my 30s, 40s, and my 20s, I would say. Forcing, pushing, hustling, trying to control every single outcome. You know, you're always making it happen, or you're the hustler, and you look down on people that don't move at your pace, that don't think like you do, that aren't moving as fast as you are. So that's masculine energy. And I have a lot of it.
So that's overactive masculine.
Totally. Overactive feminine is the opposite. You daydreaming all the time. You're you're feeling all the time, but you're never grounding into it. You never ground it into form. You're waiting for a sign forever, and you call that alignment. So over feminine can be quite lazy, right? Always on the couch, always reading books, always watching movies. It's that overly the opposite of action. It's inaction.
I've got to say, there's some days when I would have liked to have been guilty of that.
No, for sure. And listen, if anyone's in business out there, a business cannot thrive on just masculine energy. It can't. In fact, I saw a post yesterday about how much better female businesses do. I know this is open to the eye of the beholder, but how much better female businesses do because we do tap into our intuition and we do have empathy. So those are some of the kind of the feminine energies that I'm talking about.
Okay.
I was just going to say, like, listen, I used to have a PhD in pushing too hard. And, I decided that I wanted that thing and that goal, and I was going to grab the steering wheel of the universe, and I was going to drive it into the wall because I didn't trust timing or flow, or for that matter, God, the universe, the sacred source, any of those things. I thought if it had to be, it was up to me.
Got it. So both ends of the spectrum sound a little bit exhausting. Either you're burned out or you're totally stagnant.
Exactly. Like true manifestation is the dance between the two. And when you get really good at this, and I'm getting better, I will notice now in business when I'm driving, and I'll think to myself, you haven't sat on a yoga mat lately, Jennifer. And I'll notice I'm starting to get more stressed out. I'm starting to get a little bit more angered and a little more ticked off. It's because I'm not in touch with my feminine side as much.
I think probably from a business perspective, sometimes you need to leave a little bit of space for the person on the other side to come back to you as well. So
Yeah.
let's look at some real life examples in business and creation.
Got it. So just let's continue on this whole business idea for a second. The masculine builds the container, right? The strategy, the deadlines, the systems. The feminine brings the creativity, the intuition, the emotional intelligence. We all know those people that have zero EQ. It's because they're not tapped into their feminine energy. So if you only run on masculine, your work becomes very rigid and disconnected. But if you only run on feminine, you have ideas, but you never actually get them out of your journal. They don't become anything. Does that make
Got
sense?
it. Yeah. So when you were writing your book, for example, where did you feel each energy?
Well, good question. Writing the outline was the masculine, the structure, the clarity, the discipline, going back to the outline all the time, that's the container. But when I sit and I let the words flow through me, that's the feminine. When I relook at a paragraph and think, how can I add more? What are the personal examples I can bring? That's the feminine. The best chapters came when I stopped trying and I just let the story move through me. That's the feminine.
I've got to say that's sort of interesting because, as you know, I edit books. And the first thing I often do with the book is ensure that the formatting is correct. It looks the way it has to look. The structure's there, if necessary, a table of contents and endnotes and bibliography. I build all of that foundational piece before I actually start to read the book itself. And so even when I'm editing, then I'm reading for flow and energy and consistency. And yes, there's some mechanical sides behind it, but I need to feel the book in order to edit it well, particularly by holding the author's voice.
Listen, I think about for 26 years I worked in the design industry, in the graphic design industry with my husband. And I used to laugh when we would present logo concepts or quite frankly any design concepts to the clients. They would always zero in on the line wasn't right, or we'd made a spelling mistake, or the thing wasn't there, or we got the structure wrong, but they weren't seeing the idea of it all and what it was evoking. And it was such a classic example of seeing all the masculine, but not allowing any of the feminine. But listen, we all do this. It's part of human nature.
I get it. So, really, manifestation isn't just the vision boards and the meditation, it's also, the Google Sheets, the structure behind it.
Exactly. That's such a great way of looking at it. And for the longest time, I was all about the vision boards and the journaling and the reading. I wasn't doing much with it though. And now I'm finally bringing them all together in some digital products, in this podcast, in my TikTok channel. Like now I'm looking at how do I monetize all that beautiful feminine work I did.
Got it. So, can you give
And
me
balance is
some?
sexy. Balance is sexy, right? Like if you dated a guy, we both happen to date guys. If you dated a guy that all the time thought rationally and rationally and rationally and never said, honey, how was your day? Right?
Yeah,
Feeling. It
yeah,
gets boring after a while, right? Like balance is super sexy in my opinion.
I
Moving on.
get that. So, let's talk relationships a little bit because this language shows up a lot. So, people say things like, he's too in his feminine or she's too in her masculine. What does that actually mean?
Well, first of all, whoever said those two statements is definitely on the spectrum of getting this, because a lot of people wouldn't say that. But here's what that means. Sometimes you won't say he's too in his masculine, but you will say, he never understands me. He always wants to fix my problem.
Okay.
right? It means that someone's energy is a little bit out of sync with their natural rhythm because the natural rhythm is the yin and the yang. The natural rhythm is the masculine and the feminine. You can't just be one or the other. In relationships, masculine energy leads, protects, gives direction. Feminine energy receives, nurtures, and invites. But again, every person has both. So
Got it.
I know relationships where the female sex is always deciding where they'll go for dinner, making the reservations, deciding where they're going to do date night. And the men are like, wait a minute, I'm the protector and provider. When do I get to do that for you? But the women take control. Control is very masculine. And a lot of masculine guys don't like that. I know a ton of women right now that would love to be with an alpha male. Alpha is the extreme masculine, right? But they're
Yep.
so masculine themselves, that's never going to work. As women that want masculine men, I'm thinking of one friend in particular right now. You got to let the what you do between 9 and 5 for the corporate VP job drop a little bit if you want to be with a masculine guy that takes control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the other thing that I think about too is sometimes letting, if we're talking about relationships, letting your partner do things, and it might not be the way that you do them, but allowing that time and space to happen so people can be who they are. Because, sometimes your partner might wrap that gift a little bit better than you do, or wrap it differently. And that's okay too. I mean, I think being in those energies is as much for them as it is for you.
For sure. But we're talking about the extreme of those right now. So,
Right. So,
yeah, go ahead.
in a healthy dynamic, it's not about gender roles, but it's about energetic flow. Sometimes one leads and sometimes one follows.
Right. And we're not necessarily just talking about love relationships either, right? This happens in friendships where I might bring more masculine into the relationship. I want to fix her problem, right? Because I want to fix her. I'm a doer, I'm action, structure. Where all she wants is for me to sit and be soft and listen and allow her space. So it can happen there too. But when it's time to make decisions or negotiate a deal or steer the ship, I then shift into my masculine energy. One is not stronger than the other. It's just what's needed in the moment. And businesses need both and relationships need both.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think of an example where for my entire life, I've always planned the trips from start to finish. Everything was going to be this way, this way, this way. And I've now been on a couple of trips with friends and kind of went, you want to handle it? That's fine. And I will go with the flow. And it was really interesting to be in an environment where I let someone else take over and just enjoy the view. And it was absolutely amazing. So, this makes a lot of sense. It's like dancing. You can't both lead at the same time. You can't both wait for the other person to move either.
Exactly. But how did you feel in letting go?
It's actually pretty amazing.
Always? Initially, how did you feel?
Initially, I thought it was kind of fun to let somebody else do it for once because I
Okay.
felt, in some respects, because I
Like
was
you always
very
did it.
good at it, that I had to do it.
Right.
Furthermore, I actually felt responsible for the person who was traveling with me if they weren't having a good time.
Right.
So, this sort of leads us back to some of our gratitude discussions
Yeah.
where somebody else took the lead. I was more than happy, but I was also grateful. Grateful for myself to think, oh, good, I don't have to plan this. But actually expressing massive gratitude to the person who did do it as well, because I know how hard it is. And they might not have taken responsibility for whether or not I was having a good time, but just in case, I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that they knew that I appreciated them for what they did.
Yeah, and I mean, the big word for feminine, if anyone ever gets hung up on the difference, is receive. Feminine energy receives. And if you're always doing the giving, A, it's exhausting, but B, you never give the other person the joy of giving back.
Absolutely true. Okay, so let's talk about shifting the energies consciously. How do you actually shift? So let's say I've been in the go, go, go masculine mode all week. How do I get back into my feminine energy without feeling like I'm losing momentum?
Well, I will say from personal experience that dropping into feminine energy as a woman can sometimes be very hard if you've been the masculine for a long time. And I was. So some of the things I'm going to say to you might not land, but they are. You said, how do I drop in? Here's some ways to drop in. They just might not all align with you. Breath work. Yeah, I would have said, like, gag me with a spoon to that. I now get it. But initially, I would be like, not a chance. Taking a bath. Do you know I never took a bath in all those years I was running that company? Not one bath. Not one
Mm,
bath. And I had a gorgeous iron clawfoot bathtub. Not a chance. Listening to music,
yeah.
journaling, walking in nature, anything that gets you out of your head and more into your senses. So, again, candles for me are a big one. Food, cooking, being creative, journaling for me, and sitting on my yoga mat to meditate and or do yoga, also highly feminine things. They put you back in touch with your feminine energy, which is living in the present moment.
Okay, so I know you and I often talk from a woman's perspective, but if you had to answer that question, because I know we have male listeners, how a male can get into his feminine energy, what would your suggestions be?
So, if you have too much of the masculine flowing, you're probably not dreaming, sitting and letting there be empty space, seeing what drops in. That is feminine. You're probably not doing any kind of visualizing. You're planning, but maybe not visualizing. So, I'm a big believer in vision boards. I don't care whether you're masculine or feminine, male or female. I love Pinterest. It's massive for getting ideas flowing. Like, same things. Music is huge for men, right? All the men in my life are audiophiles. They love music. Music can be a great conduit channel to get into the feminine. Walking, even working out, even though some working out is very masculine, like pumping iron, it still allows your mind to escape the doing, the planning, the structure all the time, and it allows your mind some space to open up and see what drops in. Same things, taking care of yourself, eating well, working out, hey, loving yourself. Those are all very feminine energy things.
So, really, just sensory grounding no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But if
Okay.
you're on the flip side, if you're too much in the feminine flow, too much dreaming, too much visualizing, I had a man in my life that was extreme feminine energy, big dreamer, big visualizer, but nothing ever happened. So I picked it all up on the masculine side and we got into trouble with that, right?
Right.
So if you're too much in the feminine, try stepping into the masculine by setting one clear intention or taking a small concrete action, right? Like instead of I want to be more fit, I want to be more fit, I want to be more fit. Well, maybe tomorrow you go for a 10-minute walk. That's the masculine, the actual doing. Send the email, take the walk, make the call, write the first page. It's some sort of doing towards the vision.
Okay, so it's like, you check in. Am I forcing it or am I floating along?
Yes, that's the micro diagnostic right there.
Okay, so bringing it back to manifestation for me, how does this law actually create results?
Well, manifestation mirrors creation itself, right? So think of the masculine as the seed, your thought, your intention, your focus, and the feminine is the soil. So you plant the seed into the soil. Again, the soil receives the seed. So the soil is the emotional field or garden, if you will, that nurtures the seed into form. And they work together. Ideas become matter. The idea is the masculine, the soil is the feminine. Together they become form.
Okay, so if you're not seeing any results, maybe the seed isn't planted in any soil.
Yes, or you're standing over it, yelling at it to grow faster, or even worse, you're digging up the seed to see whether or not it's germinated yet, and it's never going to do anything. So there again, the feminine does come with some patience and some waiting and some faith and some hope.
That visual's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And don't forget, the soil doesn't care what you plant. It doesn't care if you plant a rose bush or if you plant a weed. The soil doesn't care. It receives it all. So that's where we have to decide, what are we really planting in the soil? What are we putting in the feminine?
Okay, so how about giving us some practical tools and integration that we could try this week?
Okay, perfect. So this is a big one, male or female, overextending yourself. Okay. If you are overextending yourself and you're overdoing or overweighting or overworking, that word over, always doing, always catching, always fixing, you are heavily into your masculine energy. Choose one action to rebalance. So if you've been forcing, try waiting or receiving. So either go play, go rest, maybe meditate, but instead of forcing it, try receiving. If you've been drifting, dreaming, with too much Netflix, anchor more. Pick one step and commit to it. And over time, you'll start feeling when your energy needs a shift. We all feel it. Sometimes we ignore it, but we all feel it.
So it's really just adjusting that thermostat to just the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah. And listen, it does take a while again to be aware. I will notice when I'm going at something, too much planning, too much structure, and I haven't made time for the yoga mat, I start to see it impact my life. And if you can start to become aware of those things, you can adjust the thermostat faster.
Well, and honestly, sometimes those spaces in between, you're not the one who has to do the adjusting. The adjustment comes to you surprisingly and delightfully in ways you don't expect either.
And depressingly too sometimes. Like sometimes you are forced into the feminine, for example, because you're burnt out.
Right.
When you're burnt out, you have been overdoing it, doing. Sometimes you're forced into deep rest, right?
Right.
Deep
So
rest.
I've got to admit, I came in thinking law of gender sounded outdated. But what you're talking about is actually emotional intelligence. It's about knowing when to lead and when to lean back.
Yes, and even that word emotional intelligence is a feminine energy concept, right? So
Right.
you again there takes a lot of awareness, but that's it. When you master this dance within yourself, everything outside you starts moving into rhythm too. And I will say, if you set yourself up with a good routine, especially for the feminine, taking the time in the morning to read, to journal, to yoga, to meditate, to do whatever that is that makes you able to receive, the doing you do throughout the day will be more balanced.
Well, you know how much I love my bubble baths, so maybe I'm not so skeptical after all.
Yep, that's the feminine right there.
Okay, so next week we've got another podcast coming your way. And Jen, thanks for your time again. Any last words?
Go have a bath, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I guess remember, balance isn't something you find, it's something that you create.
Well said. Thank you very much. And we'll reach out to you again next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend, believer or skeptic. And don't forget to leave us a review so others can join in the debate. Plus, check out Jennifer's TikTok account, Manifestation RX, where she writes daily prescriptions for manifesting your dreams. Think practical tips with a dash of magic. We love hearing your questions and stories, so tell us what you're manifesting or questioning this week. Until next time, keep an open mind and maybe manifest a little magic.